Your Creative Push, episode 55.
I say go for it and just keep doing anything that you want to do that makes you feel that sense of accomplishment and that sense of happiness. If it's out there, go for it.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Joel Robison. Joel is a 31-year-old conceptual and fine art photographer from Canada, currently living in the United Kingdom. He has been creating and sharing his conceptual portraiture work for the last 7 years, and his interest in storytelling and self-expression through art is what motivates him to create and share his work with people around the world. Through his photography workshops, he has instructed over 200 students in 7 countries to build their creative portfolios and also set up a photography business and social media presence. Joel, thank you for coming on the show today, and maybe could you fill in the gaps from that intro and tell us about your personal life?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have a bit of a conversation and talk about creativity and inspiration.
Yes.
You kind of covered the kind of bare bones, I guess, of what I've been up to the last few years. Like you said, I've been doing photography for about 7 years now. I kind of fell into it as a hobby and let it kind of take me on this crazy ride of adventures and travels and kind of brand new experiences. And I've been traveling over the last 3 years, kind of all over the world, really doing different projects and doing different client work and personal work and traveling and seeing the world and trying to show it as best as I can through photography. And it's kind of become this crazy passion in my life.
Yeah, and I'd say you're living the dream, or at least I think a lot of people listening are salivating just thinking about traveling the world and doing exactly what you love. So congratulations to you for, finding a way to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of one of the goals I think for a lot of people is to find something that you really love and be able to do that in a way that you can support yourself doing that. And it was never kind of my goal when I started to turn it into a business, and it was never my goal to actually be an artist full time. It sort of was just happening piece by piece, and I've been very lucky to have opportunities that I've had and experiences that I've had, and I don't take any of it for granted. I just try and enjoy what I have in the moment and share it with the people around me.
Absolutely. It's such a great mindset. I just wanted to quickly ask you, you worked for, Coca-Cola and FIFA as the lead photographer for the World Cup trophy tour, I think.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It's a really hard experience to sum up in a tagline, really.
Sure.
When before I did that job, I was working in a high school. I had a very regular life. I was doing kind of everything that most people my age were doing, kind of plodding along on the same plane. And then all of a sudden, I got offered this job, and it was this literal dream job. It was flying around the world on a private jet, taking photographs of celebrities and football players and heads of state and football and all of this amazing kind of atmosphere and energy. And I was getting paid to do it, and it was a job, and I it just changed everything in my whole life. It was an amazing opportunity, and I talk about it every day in some capacity because it did change everything, and it kind of showed me so much about the world and about myself, and it was really kind of my first go at being an artist full time and being a photographer full time, and you can't ask for a better opportunity, really. I could never have dreamed up a better job.
Oh, yeah. That's insane. And how many different countries did you go to?
The tour went to 90, and I think my
Oh my
final
God.
total was about 83 out of the 90.
Oh
I
my
did have
God.
to go home for a few days of rest in between it all, but but yeah, it was over 80 countries that I was able to visit and photograph and experience in some way, and it kind of pushed me to keep traveling and to keep learning and seeing more.
Absolutely. What's your favorite country to have visited that you'd like to go back to? Not maybe not that in that tour, or just that you've seen in your life.
That's a tough one. I mean, there's so many amazing places, and I struggle with like, where do I want to go next?
Right.
I would love to go to Antarctica.
Oh,
Even though I don't really like being cold, I'm from Canada. I'm used to the cold, but
yeah,
I just find that like the potential to do something really brand new and something that maybe no one else has done because it's sort of an untapped place. But maybe if I didn't go to Antarctica, it would be somewhere like India. I really enjoyed the feeling of being in India. It's a very colorful place, so there's lots of noise and action and things to see, and I kind of liked being in that crazy environment.
absolutely, and plenty of things to photograph as well.
Exactly, yeah.
What I love about your work is that like you're a part of it, and like I don't just mean that like you can tell your voice or your style, but you're actually literally physically a part of a lot of your stuff. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, when I first started taking photos, it was sort of like this secret hobby of mine because
Hmm.
I lived in a small town, um, and the only photography I'd ever seen was sort of very standard portraits or weddings or landscapes. And here I was thinking up these crazy ideas of lighting someone on fire or sending them on a tower of books. And these were all kind of very abstract ideas even for me to understand. And I thought, well, how am I ever going to ask someone to be in these photographs if I can't even feel comfortable thinking about
Sure.
them being normal? And so when I first bought a camera, I didn't really know what I was doing. I'd never taken a class or studied, so I didn't really know. And I I wanted to kind of show people when I knew what I was actually doing. So I kind of was using myself because I didn't want anyone else to see me not knowing what I was doing. And what I learned from using myself in photography was that it was helping me tell my stories better than I could have if I was taking photos of someone else. And the more I was sort of diving into this self-portraiture, the more I was learning about myself. And it was actually teaching me a lot of things that maybe I wouldn't have had the time or the energy or the effort to really learn about who I was. And I think that's kind of been the biggest thing about doing self-portraiture is that it started off as maybe convenience and it ended up being something that really helped me learn a lot about who I am and overcome some of the things that I was dealing with or struggling with. And it became a really huge part of my life and it was very therapeutic and it still is for me.
Absolutely, it's beautiful work, and I can totally understand after hearing your answer like why you did that. And I love the idea of it being like a quote secret hobby. One of the funny things about like the podcasting is, so I live with my wife and we have two roommates as well, and I don't like to record when any of them are within earshot, which is
Mhm.
like really strange because over 1,000 people listen to each episode of this. So it's really weird that it's like like I kind of go off into the cave and I don't want anybody to be able to hear me as I'm speaking into a microphone, which I'm speaking in so that other people can hear. So I can definitely relate to that idea of, a secret hobby and trying to figure it out for yourself before, kind of sharing it.
I do totally get that feeling. I feel the same way. I'll sometimes someone will want to watch what I'm doing while I'm doing it, and I get really self-conscious and I just kind of
Absolutely.
get really flustered, like I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't want anyone to know, and I don't want anyone to look at the pictures while I'm in the room, and it's very
Right.
like I get very awkward about it all. But then, someone will say, "Did you know that, this many people liked your picture?" And I just kind of freeze up, and it's almost like it's a secret identity or a double identity. Kind of step away from it once it's over. I don't think about it that much, and it is very odd.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing too is, to see numbers is one thing, but then to actually imagine just the amount of people, like kind of imagining a stadium full of those people for you, I guess it would be like more few stadiums. But what would you suggest to somebody to like kind of get over that if they are starting to see some success and more eyes are starting to see their work and it really kind of maybe freezes them a bit?
Yeah, I think that we live in a really kind of strange time with social media because it's accessible to almost everyone and it's there for everyone and we see so much and we are around so much. And I've noticed kind of in the past few years as social media grows and the photography community grows, um, there's just a lot more kind of flippant comments and commentary where people aren't really afraid to share what they really think about something, whether it's great or whether they hate it. And I think that can really be discouraging to people that are starting out. And the numbers game and the followers game and the likes game can really impact people that are just starting out because it can be really discouraging to put a lot of effort into something and feel that it didn't get received as well as you had hoped. But I always tell people when I'm teaching a class or when people ask that question that you have to really do it for yourself before anyone else. Um,
Hmm.
you can never predict any crowd of people. You could make the most amazing cake in the whole wide world, and you could give it to 10 people, and they might just hate chocolate cake. And there's nothing you can have done. You could have done any different. You're just giving it to the wrong crowd of people. And I think that that's the same with doing anything online with social media as well. You can take the most amazing photograph or paint the most amazing painting or perform the most amazing song, but it just might be the people that see it that day didn't really feel it, or it wasn't the right group of people to show it to. That doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that that little tiny fragment of social media just didn't enjoy it that day. And I think sometimes people assume that that means that they're bad or that they're not talented, but social media can never be a great barometer for talent, I don't think.
I agree completely. And also just people are at different phases in their career as well, or in their hobby. So somebody who has been around for a lot longer might have more people, or vice versa. Somebody who just started could have insane success, not necessarily because they got lucky, but they just happen to find, as you said, that right audience right away.
Absolutely.
But that's why I love that idea of, a secret hobby, because then it's just you and the thing, and you don't have to think about the audience. You can do it more honestly and more authentically if it's just you and the hobby.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Going along with what you were talking about with social media, I know that you teach your students about, developing a social media following and a business. What's the number one tip for photographers or really any creative type to, number one, build their portfolio, and number two, build their social media presence?
I think the biggest tip for building a portfolio is just and it kind of falls in line with finding kind of your place in photography or whatever art medium you're in, is just find what voice you have that's different than everyone else. And that's what's going to make people want to invest in what you're doing. When you're being innovative or when you're expressing something that's distinctly you, that only you might see or feel, then that's what sets you apart from everyone else. And that way of thinking is going to be what builds your portfolio, because your work will always be distinctly you, and it will always have that theme and that message and that feeling and that voice to it. And that ties right into being on social media, is having that voice that is distinctly you. I think that the great part about using social media is that it does give you a chance to connect with people in a very real way, in a very authentic way. And you can always kind of tell when companies or when people are using social media and it's very robotic or it's very like staged or it's very fake. And I think that social media is this way to really connect with people that like what you do, and to have it be more of a channel of communication and to talk to them and listen to them and figure out who they are and share your work with them and have them share their experiences of your work back to you. And I think that's what's great about social media. So I always try to teach students in my classes that social media shouldn't just be kind of you standing in that stadium, I guess, with a megaphone and kind of blasting your message out. It should just sort of be a conversation with people where you're engaging with people, and to use it as that.
Yeah, I love that idea. Put the megaphone down and get into the stands
Exactly.
and shake some hands and say hi and ask their opinion. That's great.
For sure.
Could you take us back to your first or one of your first creative moments and tell us that story?
If you want to go way back to when I was a kid,
Let's go
I
deep.
let's go back to the early years. I've always been very creative. I've always felt, very strongly that my way of expressing is never through words. It's always been sort of anything creative or visual. And as a kid, I was unmoved for about 10 years. Whenever anyone asked what I wanted to be when I grew up, it was an animator for Disney. That was the only answer that was satisfactory to me. And I remember my room, there's this picture in my mind of my bedroom as a kid, and it was just this endless tornado of drawings and sketches, and I had every learn to draw Disney character book in existence and had drawn every character probably a million times. And I think that that was sort of one of the moments when I think back and see that, I think that's when I knew that I had to do something kind of creative. I had to do something with my hands and myself and my heart, and all of this stuff had to be connected somehow. And I spent a lot of time because once I found out I couldn't actually draw, it kind of took a dive after that. And I didn't really know what I was going to do after I found out that I wasn't really that great at drawing. And I kind of tried all these other mediums, and I tried playing with clay and sculpting and painting and all these different things. And nothing really fit. And then when I found photography, it was a bit wobbly at first, but then I remember there was this one image that I had taken that was really the first one that I think I would call fine art in my work. And it was this idea of me being lifted up by these balloons on a bicycle. And
I
I
love that one.
I just kind of tried it for the first time, and I didn't really know what I was doing, and it was kind of brand new, and I had this foggy image in my head, and it came out exactly how I wanted it to look. And that was sort of like the first moment in photography where I was like, I'm back to being that kind of crazy kid in my room where I'm just doing crazy stuff and I'm happy. And I think that those were kind of very connected, even though they were so many years apart.
Yeah, I love that. And how long after you created that first one until you were able to kind of duplicate it? Not duplicate it, but create like that same feeling again. Was it right away? Like, were you off to the races after that point?
Yes and no. At the time I was doing a 365 project, so a project where you take a photo every day for a year.
Oh, cool.
And I've done four of them actually. That's how I
Oh, wow.
started. Yeah, I'm quite stubborn and determined. So I thought the
Good.
best way to learn is if I do this every day, I have no option but to get better somehow. Um, so yeah, there were definitely days where I felt like I was very coherent in expressing these ideas, and then there were days where, things just looked like crap, and that was just how it was. But it was definitely kind of this Kickstarter for me saying, this is it. This is the voice. This is what you're going to be doing now. And there's definitely moments where I feel it's clearer in me, and there's definitely times when it's not as clear, but I think that was definitely one of the first moments that really pushed me down this road.
Very cool. So you said there's moments where you're kind of tapped in and there's moments where you're not. Do you think that goes like project to project, or is it more of like a day to day thing, like where you're like, I'm in the zone today and I can create a lot of different things, like I'm in there, let me get as much work out as possible? Or is it more of just like, I'm really tapped into this particular idea?
I think it's a bit of both. I think it just depends on kind of where I'm at in my personal life. So if my mind is kind of clear, then I feel like I have more time to be free enough to open up my mind and think of ideas.
Hmm.
Sometimes when there's a lot going on of like real life stuff, which
Yeah, yeah.
who wants to really deal with that?
I hate the real life stuff.
When that real life stuff is there, I kind of just get sucked into it, and I kind of put being creative aside, and I'll still try, but I don't ever feel like they're kind of the best that I can do. I feel
Hmm.
like I'm still practicing, and I feel like if it's like going for a run, if you're training for a race, there's sometimes when you're running and you feel really great and strong, and then there's sometimes where you're just going because you need to get the miles in.
Hmm.
And I feel like sometimes there's pictures where I'm just putting the miles in and I'm just
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
keeping the muscles strong. But then there's times when it just feels really, really coherent and really on. And there was a photo recently I took, I think it was maybe in January, where I just woke up in the morning and I just almost instinctively put my shoes on and put my camera in my bag and just I had to create. It had to happen now, and everything just was perfect. It was just easy to do, and everything kind of fell together in the right way. And it was just one of those moments where it had to be that. It had to be that. It had to be now. It had to work, and it did. And those are great. Those moments, I kind of savor those ones because it doesn't always happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Going along with that, one of the things that we talk about on the show, or a lot of people give the advice about, and I try to also say, is, it's all about putting in the time and trying to make it a daily effort to at least put in a little bit of work. That's why this podcast is a daily podcast, because sometimes you need that push every single day. Would you recommend doing that, like a 365-day challenge, as a means of putting in the time?
Yeah, definitely. I think that that was exactly what you said. I mean, doing something every day, you're going to get better at it. And that doesn't mean to say that every one of your finished pieces is going to be better than the one before, but it means that you're getting better and you're getting stronger. And I think that when I look back at those projects that I did, and if I can look at the pictures that maybe didn't turn out so great or the ones that I don't like, I can't just say, "Well, I don't like it." I have to understand why I don't like it. Was it
Mm.
because the lighting was bad or because I rushed this part of it or the editing wasn't so great? And you can still learn from the bad ones and get better. And I think that anytime you do something every day, you're going to get stronger and better and use that to keep pushing yourself forward. So I always recommend for people to try some sort of a project, and even if it's once a week, even if it's, every Thursday you post something, it does get your body and your mind kind of working together to create and to be engaged and to keep working towards something.
Yeah, absolutely. Aside from, somebody perhaps watching you as you work, what are some what are some other things that maybe hold you back from actually putting in the work?
I think sometimes I struggle with attention deficit disorder. So sometimes it's
Are
just
you
not
do you
being.
are you diagnosed?
I am, yeah.
Cool.
And that it wasn't a surprise for me.
Right.
It runs in my family, and I'd worked with a lot of students that deal with it, and it wasn't ever anything that kind of kept me back from anything. But I know that sometimes my lack of organization keeps me from being as productive as possible, just because I'm kind of flying all over the place and I'm not paying enough attention to one thing. So that's something that can stand in my way. And I think sometimes it's my own feeling of doubt. It's my own feeling of, no one is really gonna care if I do this or not. And I feel like that's just my own self-doubt. That's
Mm-hmm.
just my own feeling of maybe this isn't as important. But I still try and do it anyways. And I've always kind of struggled with, I guess, they're make-believe naysayers. I always
Right.
kind of I always feel like someone might just say something negative, so I almost talk myself out of doing things just in case someone was going to say that. And I know that I've done that a lot in the past with other things, not just photography. I've talked myself out of things because of what someone might say. So sometimes I get caught up in that. Like maybe someone will think this is just too weird.
Mm-hmm.
So I might have an idea that I think is really cool, but maybe just people will think it's too weird. So it pushes me kind of to not try it. But I'm getting better. Either I'm getting older and I just don't care anymore about what people think, or I'm getting better at just following what makes me happy and doing the things that I want to do.
Yeah, I think you just nailed it, because the imaginary naysayer, I think, is, it's that voice in your head that says the extreme opposite of, the extreme end of what the reaction to whatever you're creating might be. And sometimes there are, actual naysayers, this is stupid or whatever. I think it's really hard to get past that. Do you have any suggestions for how to shut those people up, even if they don't exist?
Yeah, I think that I I definitely struggle with those kind of imaginary things sometimes, and I always just try and focus on what are the things that people might enjoy about this, or what about the things that people might see in this and get something out of that I might not have seen. And
Mm.
I think for me, one of the biggest times that this has happened recently is I started talking a little bit more about things that I'm struggling with. So whether it's anxiety or depression or things that I'm dealing with in my regular life. And I felt like wanted to open up about those things because they do impact my art and they do impact my photography. And I wanted to be as open as I could, and it was helping me kind of understand those things in myself. And that's when those kind of imaginary things came up the biggest because it was very personal. And I thought, oh, people are just going to tell me to shut up and who cares? And there were people that did kind of tell me, like, maybe you shouldn't be talking about this. But there was a
Hmm.
lot of people that ended up sending me messages saying, I read what you wrote and I saw these pictures that you created from that feeling, and it really helped me understand myself, and it really, helped me understand my son, or it really helped me understand something that I was going through and couldn't put a picture to or couldn't put words to. And it makes me feel so much better to know someone else understands. And I think that it's those times that make me feel more confident than any naysayer, invisible or not, could ever make me feel. I think that in the event that people are struggling with, those imaginary things, it's just to believe that there's good in the world and believe that there's good people out there that will support what you do and encourage what you do, and they are out there, and just keep doing what you like to do.
Keep doing what you like to do, and they'll find you.
In the immortal words of kind of Taylor Swift, haters gonna hate, and just shake
Haters
it
gonna
off.
hate. For sure. Yeah. I mean, no truer words have been spoken, I think. But for real though. Yeah, I think that what you said is perfect, and I applaud you for being able to put yourself out there, because I know it is tough to expose yourself, and especially to say give the kind of behind the scenes reason for why you're doing something. And I think that that's what art is all about, is making those connections, to be able to put yourself out there, be vulnerable, so that other people can latch on, relate to it. And that, like you said, when you receive those messages from people that say, hey, like, yes, I resonated with this and this helped me. I mean, that's, I think, the whole part of the art communication that's so important. So thank you for doing that.
Absolutely. I never wanted to really just make photos that people looked at and thought, well, that's cool, and then just kind of forgot about the next day. I think what you said is right. You want to have a connection to people, and I didn't want anyone ever to think that maybe I was just sort of like this robot that was just, emotionlessly pushing out all of this stuff. I wanted people to really understand where it was coming from, and the connections that I've been able to have ever since I started opening up a little bit more about my process and about who I am has been really great, and it's given me even more opportunities and more kind of avenues to express myself and to meet other people, and it's been nothing but good, which is great.
Love it. I absolutely love it. This has been a giant inspiration and a giant push already, but it is time for our final push.
Oh,
and this is where I ask, this is where I ask you to reach to the microphone and grab the shoulder of somebody you've already inspired or touched today, and give them that final push into action.
Yeah, if I could do that, I would really just say everyone has something that they really love to do, and uh, whether you get a chance to do it and you foster that already, or you're kind of afraid to start doing it because you're afraid of someone thinking that it's silly or it's not tangible or it's not real. I think that if it makes you happy, if it makes you feel good, if it makes you understand yourself better, if it makes you understand the world better, you should always go forth and follow those things that make you happy, follow those passions. And you only get a chance to live this life once, and it should be about following those things that make you feel the most alive. And there's going to be naysayers no matter what you do. If you sit on the couch or if you go out and have these adventures, you're going to get people that maybe don't understand. But as long as what you're doing helps you understand yourself better and the world better, and it makes you feel this sense of happiness, I say go for it and just keep doing anything that you want to do that makes you feel that sense of accomplishment and that sense of happiness. If it's out there, go for it.
Go for it, people. Joel, thank you so much, man, for
Yeah,
coming on the show today.
it's my pleasure. Yeah, I've had a lot of fun.
And you can find Joel on his website. That's joelrobison.com, JoelRobison. And on Facebook, he is Joel Robison Photography. On Twitter, he is Boy Wonder Joel. And on Instagram, he is Joel Robison. And you can check out his book, Create Yourself. Definitely check this out. It will be on the show notes page as well at yourcreativepush.com/Joel. Joel, thanks again, brother.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. Wow, not much more to say after that episode except for the fact that Joel is the man. His art and his style is so unique. His photography is awesome. And like I said in the interview, he puts himself into his art, not just physically, but he fully puts himself in. So definitely, if you haven't, check the show notes page, yourcreativepush.com/Joel, and you'll definitely see what I mean. And look, if you are struggling with your secret identity, don't worry about it. Just keep staying in that secret identity, that secret role, just as long as you are creating. That's the important thing. You can come out whenever you want. Don't worry about that. The important thing is that you create. Like Joel said, you have to find your audience, and I promise that you will have a receptive audience. You just have to be patient, and we will help you with this podcast. I am going to roll out a Facebook group, a very supportive Facebook group in the coming days at some point soon, if I can find the time. But the important thing is that you don't need to have a big social media following. You don't need to have anybody following you. The only person you need to be following you is you. You and you alone. Just create stuff that you want to see in the world, satisfy yourself, and worry about everyone else later. So that is all I've got for you today. Hopefully we were able to give you the inspiration to get your work done. So have a great day, be productive, get your work done, and we will be here for you tomorrow if you need the push again. I love you all, and we will see you then. Bye.